I mean, you succeed 3 times out of 10 in baseball, you're in the Hall of Fame. So I was kind of used to failing. So I think kind of getting into this, I wasn't afraid to fail versus like, you're afraid to either call that person or go to a meeting with them versus I was just like, what's the alternative,
Hey, we're here in the lab and we got 2 really good friends. They came down from Kentucky today, spent a little time with us, tell us a little bit about real estate and mortgage and what they're doing in their world. They've got a really cool story. And we got Kim and Devin Buckner here. And so we're going to have a little discussion. We're going to get into a few things. And I just want to tell you guys thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sure.
How was the drive down here? Was it okay? Nashville, nice too?
The lovely Nashville traffic. It's good times. Test your patience.
Speeding a little bit.
No. We're very patient people, both of us.
No, okay. Not at all.
I can tell you're being facetious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where were you coming from?
So Lexington, Kentucky.
Lexington, Kentucky. Oh, horse country, right?
It is horse country. It's a phenomenal little place. I love to say it's a quaint, big, little city.
Yeah.
It's a great place to live.
Home of the Wildcats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were just telling us before we turned on the camera, you went to college. You went to Stetson. By the way, my grandmother's back wall on her property was the wall to Stetson College.
Oh, really?
I would walk out her backyard. I would see Stetson.
Nice. Yeah.
And I was like, is that the cowboy hat? And she's like, yeah. Same people.
Well, that was one of the opportunities.
Yeah, that was one of the opportunities I had. That's where I lost. I actually lost a scholarship from there, and I was like, I'm gonna get into title work and go to Stetson Law, and that's when I lost that scholarship. I was like, I guess I'll get into lending.
Right.
So I ended up going to school in South Carolina. So yeah, I played there for 3 years and enjoyed it. Played pro ball for a year and got into lending. So yeah.
Yeah. So Devin is in mortgage lending with Benchmark.
Right? Yeah.
And we become friends through social media, the power of social media.
Oh, yeah.
And then Kim's been a real estate agent for 15 years now. And you're with?
EXP.
You're with EXP. All right. So we got 2 pros here. And you've experienced some success in your first, year, 2 years in mortgages, right?
Yep. Closed my first loan April 28th of 2023.
How'd you meet a mortgage guy? Or how'd you meet a mortgage person?
Well, Marty Preston, he actually was a family friend of ours growing up. I'd known him for forever. And he'd always kind of told me, hey, I kind of want you to come work for me. I didn't know exactly what he did or what a mortgage was, to be honest. And it's just kind of, rest has been history since then. So, and I love it.
That's cool. So you played baseball and then went pro ball.
Yep.
Wow. What was that like?
It's not what everybody thinks it is, for sure. Like, it's not as glamorous. And for me, I'm not the type of person to just be like, oh, just to play pro ball, just to say, oh, yeah, I'm playing professionally, but getting a check for $422 a week. So,
good time.
Unfortunately, that one over there is expensive. So $422 a week isn't going to do it.
He's a beautiful wife. They're getting ready to have their first little baby.
Yeah.
Worth every dime.
She is. Yeah.
I mean, literally a game. Like, we're really good friends. He's a college coach. He's been in his whole life. It's the only thing he's ever done. And, he gets moved around, and his skill set for what he gets paid, he's in the minor leagues. Do you remember back in the day, it might have been, I don't know if you ever saw this, but it was the Chattanooga Lookouts.
Yeah.
And he got out on the field and threw the rock bag and crawled.
Was that him? Yeah. That's crazy,
I knew him from Vermont.
Dang.
I grew up in Vermont. We moved down here. And one day I got a message and it was like, hey, it's Philip and Monty. We live in Chattanooga. Like, could you help us with a mortgage loan? And that's crazy. Social media too.
It's crazy. Just relationships, Yeah. It's amazing how they're formed a little bit differently today than they used to be. And I mean, I think the combination of all this with baseball, especially, we were talking about this on the way up here, how that formed your work ethic.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That correlation, it's such a mind, it's just a mental game, baseball is, and you have to stay a few steps ahead. So I feel like it's been like a really nice transition of having that skill set and bringing that into this world.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. It's just kind of like baseball is a game of failure. And obviously this industry is pretty hard right now, or pretty tough right now. I mean, you succeed 3 times out of 10 in baseball, you're in the Hall of Fame. So I was kind of used to failing. So I think kind of getting into this, I wasn't afraid to fail versus like, you're afraid to either call that person or go to a meeting with them versus I was just like, what's the alternative, Right. So.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I always like to think of the upside too.
Yeah.
That motivates me. Well, this is the downside, but what's the upside if I do that?
Yeah.
A little bit closer to you.
Oh, sorry. No, it's just been super interesting to see, him coming into this world. He obviously grew up with real estate. as kind of, the bread and butter of the house, right? So he was very familiar with real estate. So when I hear people today say, God, he's just picked up on all this so quickly, and how has he learned everything so fast? I'm like, he's grown up with this, right? He's not new to it. But it was also really, for me, it was a really big priority to make sure that he kind of paved his own way and did his own thing. And, when you're in that small town and everybody knows your name, and hopefully for good reasons.
Valuable.
Yeah, but you also want to make sure that he's doing his own thing. And so he's just kind of taken off and taken his own skill set and done his own thing.
Yeah, I purposefully reached out to people that didn't know her just to prove a point. It pissed me off. There was somebody in my office that was like, "Oh yeah, that's great. You're gonna get all of your mom's deals or something like that." And I was like, "Motherfucker!" I was like, "All right." I was like,
"I'll never forget that first meeting." Remember the first meeting we were in, and it was actually a Zoom, and one of the people said, "Oh, well, okay, so Devin, what about your mom?" And I said, "Whoa, we're at work,
right? We're
at work. So I'm Kim."
Right.
And he's Devin.
You should have seen us when I was making an offer on a home. We were getting into it.
And when they were buying their first home, right?
Oh, yeah.
When they were buying their first home, right? And I said to him, I was like, listen, you told me what your goal was. And that goal, when they sat down, they said, hey, we want to move into a home. We want this to be our first rental property. We want to live here for, you told me, 2 to 3 years. We want to be able to take the equity, buy another home, keep this thing and rent it out. We want the first home they find and they want to write this offer on it. Didn't fit that goal. And so he was just, we're going at it just like two bulls, and I just said, my job, I'm not your mom right now, right? I'm your realtor.
Right.
And my job is to make sure that the goal you told me, right? We're going to take all this emotion out of it. You had a goal in the beginning, and I want to make sure that you hit that goal, right? So we talked through it. They adjusted the goal a little bit. He got the house they wanted.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how long did you move in there?
October 26th. Okay. I'm pretty sure we closed on it.
Your own mortgage loan?
I did not do my own mortgage loan. So
what a nice, right? Yeah.
Just one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tuned to real estate 15 years ago. What happened? What was the catalyst there?
Oh my gosh, such an interesting. So I'd always had that entrepreneurial spirit, always had my own business. We actually had just like this catastrophic event family wise. And we were it was a terrible car accident. Someone was killed. It was not our fault. And you still carry that, right? So it was really tough. It affected my business. It kind of made me halt, and just my kids were teeny tiny at the time. And my dad came to me, and I was like, I don't think I can do that. I kind of went in, just really, really went internal. I was such a social person, and all of a sudden this terrible thing happens in your world, and it just completely changes your personality, And so I kind of broke off from my business and hung out at home with my kids. I was in a cast, I couldn't drive a car for 9 months. Whoa. Anybody who knows me knows that was, torture. And anyway, all of that aside, my dad said, you really should get into real estate. And kind of like when you were talking about, I didn't even know what a mortgage was, right? It's I don't want to do real estate. That's crazy. Why would I want to do that? And he just pounded me for a year. And he finally said, I will pay for you to take the classes. Just take the classes, wow. Right? And if you don't like it and you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it, right? But let's try it out and see how it goes. And just hit the ground running. And I had no idea how much of a relationship business it was. When you first get in the business, nobody really tells you the importance of a database or the importance of relationships, right? You just kind of sit there and think this business is going to fall in your lap, I guess. I don't know what people think. But it really helped that we already had a strong foundation, that I had a business, then people already knew who I was. And so it just took off very, very quickly.
So you heard all the vernacular, all the words and the terms for so long. So that means my 2 daughters should probably be mortgage people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll be in the world somewhere, right?
I think that moving forward, and maybe, I'd like to hear your opinion on this, but I don't think being able to get into our industry that we were fortunate to get in the industry will be the same in the future.
Oh, no.
Mm-mm. It's so hard right now.
Yeah. The level of entry has been so very low for so long, right? And just such low risk. And it's not that way anymore.
I mean, people have technology. They got different resources now.
Oh, yeah.
Look up things. They want speed. Mm-hmm. And our companies like that. I just moved from a company 2 years ago that just they were a good company, but we weren't great. And it's the speed and the technology. And it was, and so much has changed in the last 3-4 years. I was taught old school where it was hey, this is the checklist of documents. Mm-hmm. tell your clients to come to the office and sit at the desk with you. That's why you should wear a suit. I said, I don't have a suit, sir. He's like, well, go to Goodwill store and buy you a suit.
Yeah.
Then I showed up one day, like 2 weeks later, and he was like, what do you think? Your good looks are going to close loans? He goes, your suit looks like you got it from Salvation Army. I said, sir, I did. Goodwill.
Yeah.
So
great.
I used to sneak in there. This is what they would buy internet leads, and the fax paper would come across, and it'd be all rolled up. And if you kept it in your car, fax paper will turn black,
Yeah.
So I'd run in there at like 5:30 before anybody else, and I'd go through all the leads, and I'd take out all the good ones. And I still remember my first loan was a cash out refinance over in Hendersonville. His name was Roy Dykus. He was a car dealer. And I think I saved him like $1,700 a month in consolidating debt. And I remember he had a cigarette, mustache, blonde hair, and it was in that bubble in the car lot. And this is when we used to have to drive our documents and files to go get them signed, bring them back, stack them. I would drive up to Countrywide and drop them off. We'd have conditions by like 4 that afternoon. We'd close it the next day.
That's crazy.
Because you'd get fast and easy drive by, save the appraisal, no income tax, Nina loan.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Awesome.
Yeah, my processor, I was like, how did y'all close loans back in the day? Because like you had to drive and do all that stuff. She goes, oh, quick and easy, baby.
Yeah.
That was quick and easy loans. She goes, no income, nothing, all that. It was crazy.
I think you're really, really fortunate to have found this industry. I always tell people, like, I am not that smart, but to find an industry that we can make this type of money and impact the people's lives in the way that we do.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Well, that's it. If you have to be able to impact people's lives, right? Like all the time we talk about how one deal doesn't make or break you, right? But that one deal and doing such a good job and making them have this, they walk away with this incredible experience and they tell everybody about it. That's the thing. So that goes right back to that level of entry has been raised so much. The bar has just been raised so much higher, whether it's the means by which people, get their services or the expectations. And the expectations are much, much higher than they used to be.
Well, it's like we talk about in the office, commoditization. It's like everything is starting to, if you don't provide some type of value somewhere, then they're just going to go to somebody that's going to do it for cheaper.
Sure.
So it's like,
well, and also when you talk about cheaper, we joke around in our industry, like if you think a realtor is expensive, hire a bad one, right?
Yeah.
And you just have no idea how much it can actually cost you when people don't know. We were talking last night about the difference between, putting an offer in on a home and reducing the offer price versus getting some money for a buy down. And what I was saying to Troy was like, how terrible is that for the client that does not know? If they didn't have a lender that had that conversation with them on the front end and they don't have a realtor that understands how it works and they write an offer on a home, too bad, so sad. Like it's too late, right? Like, and it's just so sad that people, as much information as we're privy to now and how much is out there, it's just like getting the right information to the right people. So again, power of social media.
You've probably experienced this. Like it is sad. Like, hey, we're selling our house. What are you going to walk away with? $300,000. What do they say they want to do with the $300,000?
Put it all down towards down payment.
Right.
Yeah.
And you look at the application, you're like 2 car loans, credit cards, loan payment totals $1,800. Mm-hmm. And it's just like we get these people into this fast, furious, make an offer, whatever, and we need a pre-qual letter. It's like, okay, you want a letter? Like, this is people's lives. And I think people are learning, not as fast as I would like, but they're learning that, hey, we need to slow down here. Like, and being a business person first and being a mortgage lender second is what I really, really try to focus on. What have you taken from what you've learned in baseball into your career now, like other than hard work ethic?
I mean, other than hard work ethic, I mean, it's just like, I'd say circumstances. I think taking this opportunity, like, not for granted at all. Like, I mean, I was literally playing with players that were stealing food from the cafeteria when I was in junior college to, like, make ends meet. And I'm like, so I came from pretty good beginnings, like, got new equipment, all that stuff. These guys were playing with used bats from hand-me-downs, all that. And then you're rooming with guys, like, no joke, I was rooming with a guy, we were on a road trip, and he, like, shit in the trash can. Can I cuss on here? Is that okay? You. So, like, he shit in the trash can, and I was like,
why?
What the I was like, bro, his name was Gabby. I was like, Gabby, why'd you shit in the trash can? And he was like, dude, I've never had running water. And I was like, whoa. So that's what I'm competing against. It's like, these guys don't have running water. They're stealing food from the cafeteria. they're way more talented than me. So it's like, if I have to do that, I have to work that much harder just to kind of have that mindset every single day. Like doing what you have to do every single day, no matter how you feel, because ultimately, and this industry is hard right now. Doing mortgages are hard. Real estate's hard, but it's like, doesn't matter how you feel. You have to show up every single day.
Mm-hmm. The part of that I remember, I don't remember all of those circumstances because I wasn't there, but I do remember the text that came to me and your dad at like midnight. No, Sean. He didn't even tell us what the circumstances were, but it was literally like a 6-paragraph text of the gratitude. Right. Wow. The gratitude of the life that he had. And so I think we have this saying, we have lots of sayings I use in our home, but one of them is when you drink the water, don't forget who dug the well. Mm-hmm. And I think it's critical, especially now, to just be like, to have the opportunity. Or another one is, if you want to be a thoroughbred, don't run with donkeys, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we're here, right? Come to the thoroughbred table, right? Because it's just iron sharpens iron. It just makes us all better. And I think
put those quotes. Sorry, you should put those quotes on the wall.
Yeah.
There's just too many. There's too many.
Oh,
His
yeah.
mom has said.
Yeah.
I mean, except when they were little, I'd be like, guys, if you want to be a thoroughbred, and they'd be like, don't run with donkeys. Like, they were like so sick of it.
My mom always say, don't go to a dentist with crooked teeth. If you want to fly with eagles, you can't soar with eagles if you fly with turkeys.
She's exactly right. But when you talk about coming from a place of gratitude, it changes that whole trajectory, Devin, like of how you serve people. You know, I mean, when we're talking about being transactional versus being relationship based, and just like you said, being a business person and not just a lender, all of that is so critical. And I feel like everywhere we are, no matter, we were talking about this earlier, of just thinking you worked, 20 years almost to be this professional baseball player, right? And if things don't go exactly how you think they should go, well, sometimes you got to stop and go, well, maybe it wasn't my plan, right? Maybe God had a different plan for me. And all these things that I learned along the way paved the way for me to be where I am now.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh, yeah. No, for sure.
Just chapters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, my favorite verse is Hebrews 11:1. It's just like everything happens for a reason. The seen and the unseen.
Yeah.
And, I could have been a victim of what happened with my family.
Yes.
Or I could say, hey, I remember the gratitude for me. Like, I remember my mom got the phone call Saturday morning. I was watching cartoons. It was my dad. He was at a payphone in New York. And about 10 minutes later, he jumped off the Verrazano Bridge.
Oh.
And I still remember that at 6 years old. And I also remember a couple of days later, I have a picture in my wall, in my office framed. And it's where I went down to the basement and got some 2x6s. I got a poster board. I went down to my uncle's general store and got a thing of Kool-Aid and Domino sugar. And I made Kool-Aid. And I wanted to have a Kool-Aid stand to make my mom some money to help her. Mm-hmm. So it just started like from that, like, hey, this is what you do when stuff happens. Like,
But Sean, at your core, you're a servant's heart, right? Like that just tells me everything. At 6 years old, that's what you thought about, right? Like it wasn't, what's going to happen to me? How are you going to take care of me, right? Your very first go-to was, how am I going to take care of my mom?
The other part, though, the flip side of it is I learned how to be a salesman. Because the first weekend I was like 10 cents, 80 cents. This is not going to work out. Shit, I can do something different.
Yeah.
So the next weekend, the bikers came up, and the picture I have in there is actually when it was happening. My mom was taking a picture of me, and they were like, well, how much is the Kool-Aid? And I said, whatever you'd like to give me, sir. And a $5 bill came.
Oh.
And I was like, whoa, I'm on to something.
Yeah.
I think I brought like $80 home that day.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then the third weekend, I got in trouble because I had my little sister, and I would take her out there, and I'd sit her in the seat, and then I was going and doing something else. And my mom was like, "What's your sister doing out there?" Well,
yeah.
Right?
That's funny.
It's about this journey. Like, I want to know about like real estate in your world right now and mortgages in your world, because obviously we're down here in Nashville, you're in Kentucky. There's a lot of similarities, but like, what's it been like the last 6 months for you? Like, obviously it's all unicorns and rainbows.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
What's the market been like working with agents? Like, what's your outlook on it?
I've noticed very quickly who you work with matters. So like, I tell people that all the time, like my main partners, it's like, I told them in the very beginning, I didn't want to work with anybody and everybody, because that matters. Like
thoroughbreds and donkeys.
But it truly does matter, because you could have a great, like, prime example. I just had a great borrower finally get under contract, and they're putting the wrong program. Like, they had to go, she was better fitted to go on FHA, And I told them to kind of keep me up to date with what they're looking for, because two of the properties he was going to look at fell in that 90-day flip rule. And what do you know? They go under contract, FHA, and it's fell in that. So I had to convert her over to conventional, and then she's, rate shop, all that stuff. So it's like who you work with truly matters, and it makes my process a lot easier. And then you have to do everything you can, to keep them close. But it kind of starts with making sure they're the right fit for you. Because I'm very transparent. If I'm not a big fan of you, if I don't like you, then I'm just not going to work with you. I don't, So,
Smart man.
We're really fortunate. Lexington, I like to say it's a bubble economy, and it really is. I mean, our commerce there is phenomenal, so much employment. Our unemployment rate has always been super low. Obviously, it's all kind of core is the University of Kentucky. So employment there is phenomenal. We've always maintained a really nice, stable economy. So I don't want to say it's a total bubble, but I mean, it kind of is. Like, we don't have those ebbs and flows that a lot of markets have. And what that does is that kind of instills some laziness in our profession, right? Yeah. Because we haven't seen, though. Like, I know I'm never going to put someone in a home in Lexington, Kentucky, and they're going to lose 30% of their equity. Like, it's never. And I can say never. Like, take it to the bank in front of Jesus. It's never going to happen in Lexington, Kentucky. Like, it's just how it is. And so when you talk about professionals and who you work with, I mean, there are the folks that are transitional or transactional folks, rather. And then there are the people that the relationships matter.
Absolutely.
And when that is really the core of who you are, you go to the ends of the earth to help them, right? So I think the market, for us, it definitely shifts. I mean, things might sit a little bit longer. We might not have as much inventory, what have you. But I have seen the behaviors of professionals definitely shift. And even just in the last couple of years, the people that are truly having to get out of the business.
Right.
Because it's just so very different in not only how the market is operating, but how people are getting their information, what the needs of the consumers are. There's just so many changes. And if you aren't willing to pivot and make some quick adjustments, which again, I think is where baseball comes in handy, right? If you're not willing to do that, you're going to hurt.
And be coachable.
Yeah.
Oh,
extremely coachable.
Oh, absolutely. You did have a choice, Sean.
I tell my daughters, I'm like, they're like, you're mean. I was like, no, I'm not mean. I'm fair, but I'm very direct, and you're going to do what I tell you, because I know that it's going to work out for you. The last 4 or 5 years, it's been a whiplash. This is what I think's happened. We had like 17 straight years of like great increase in real estate. Then this COVID happened, and it just shifted everything. It was like, how do I do business when I can't go out in public? Right? So we had to improvise. That's how I got into social and digital. I was like, if I'm going to be on Zoom every day, I'm going to make it look good, right?
Yeah.
So that was where I kind of started like upgrading that stuff. But then here's what's happened. COVID went away. People said, I miss people. Relationships are important. But all the people that got into our industry, because it was easy, and there were some good people that got in that were good realtors, but they weren't taught any other way.
Yeah.
And then we got whiplash, and it's like, hey, now you better know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
You better have the right vernacular. Like, I was telling an agent the other day, and probably an agent been in the business about 5 or 6 years, and I said, she was saying buy down and temporary buy down, 2-1. I said, you're screwing.
Yeah.
It's a 30-year fixed mortgage that what I do is I get credits from the seller on your behalf where you get a discount on the loan and the payment for the first 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, things people can understand. And
right.
I think my frustration with the real estate industry and mortgages, but with real estate industry, is just slow down to learn, slow down to improve, slow down. But I think people are they're at a point, they got to close deals, they got to pay the bills, and life is tough. And I empathize with that. But staying in that lane of those thoroughbreds, those ones that I have an avatar. I have an avatar for people I want to work with. And like, it's not top producer. It's not, certain demographics or anything. It's, are they humble? Are they coachable? Are they relationship oriented? Are they hard worker, right?
Yeah.
They run a calendar. Like, can they text you back within 24 hours? Kim, let's talk about a couple of things that you think are the basics that you've learned over 15 years that just the real estate and the mortgage industry is just screwing up on right now. Like, what are some things that are basics that you've done in your career to make you successful that you just see people really failing at?
I mean, number one, do the right thing every single time. Like, every single time. So when you just said people are in a place where they need to close deals and they have bills to pay, you know what? My problem is not my client's problem. Right. And you can never, the moment that the agent crosses that line and makes their problems their client's problem, then they're no longer a true fiduciary, right? So always taking the time to stop and just, hey, let's make sure I'm centered and I remember what the real deal is here. Like, what's the goal for everybody? And it's do the right thing every time. When he first got in, I told him, I was like, listen, you're going to walk into rooms and people are going to ask you if you're my kid. Like, it's going to happen. It's not a huge town. I've been doing this for a while. And they may have things to say, but they are never going to say that I was dishonest. They're never going to say I did the wrong thing or I cheated any. You are never under any circumstances going to hear that. They may say she's tough or she tells it how it is or she doesn't have a great filter.
Right.
But it's always well intended.
No.
So I think that's number one. Number two is most people, not a lot, most agents really shy away from tough conversations.
Oh.
Yeah. And this business is, 90% of the conversations I have are tough, right? You have to tell people their baby's ugly and it's not fun, but you have to do it when there's so much at stake. And I feel like people have not made the best financial decisions in the last few years, and some people ever, that right now is just not the time to fumble that. And so now is the time. I've had many a listing appointment where I say to them, don't sell this house. Right. Like if you don't have to move, if you aren't forced, like physically you have to be somewhere else, it would not be a wise move for you to sell this home. Like, keep this home, right? Like that is not in my best interest, right? I only get paid if they sell their home, or if I'm showing a home to somebody and I say, don't buy this house. I know you all like this house, but let's not buy this house, right? Yeah. That's not my best interest. Yeah. That's in their best interest. So I think that those two are major. And the third one absolutely is educating yourself, getting yourself in bigger rooms, right? We're all in these rooms, right? We all have kind of these blinders on or what have you of these spaces we've been in, and it's nice and comfortable and it's great. But every now and then you just got to get yourself in a bigger room and get around. That's why we're here.
Get uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, do you think like we are two of the busiest people I know? Like a 4-hour drive down here and hanging out for 24 hours and Father's Day on Sunday, like, but if we can do it, anybody can do it, right? It's like you want to get around people, the iron's going to sharpen the iron, right?
One thing that would drive me nuts as a realtor in that vein is like when you go and there's more than one agent interviewing for the listing, and then you're giving them the honest assessment of what it's going to take to sell this house. And then the guy down the road, this happens a lot, doesn't it? They're just like, well, I could sell it for this.
Yeah.
It's like you just know. It's like
with us,
the rate's so low, it's like it's a race to the bottom. They're either lying to you or you're going to get a really crappy loan.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've had a line that I've used for probably 10 years now. When I go in behind somebody and the client says to me, well, Agent B came in and she said she would do it for X commission, right? Like, will you reduce? I haven't reduced a commission in 12 years and I won't. Well, it's not how I work, and those aren't my people, right? I'm not going to go somewhere and come to you and be like, hey, will you do it cheaper for me? Because I value the service that I'm going to get, right? I understand the knowledge and the experience and what that means to me, and it's worth far more than a few $1,000s that I may save, right? Yes. So I know how I would operate, so I don't do that. But when a seller says to me, well, Agent A said, she would do it for less, will you reduce for me? And I would say, oh my gosh, that is just so surprising to me, Sean. I can't believe that just immediately before we even got into any negotiations or anything that she agreed to reduce her commission like that. That's the money she uses to feed her family. What in the world is going to happen when she has to negotiate on your behalf with money that's not even hers?
Oh, that is good. Y'all better take that down and write it.
Right? But it's true. It's 100% true. Like, it's not just like, hey, I'm going to make up the story. It's true. And the bottom line is she's not. Yeah. She doesn't care. If she's going to give it up that quick to get a deal when it's her money that she has to pay her bills with, she doesn't give a rip about your money.
Our mutual friend, Kelly Ladwig.
Yes.
She sold our house before we built our farm. Mm-hmm. And it was right when Ukraine was being invaded. And I called her and I said, I need to sell my house. You've got the most exposure. You're my number one agent. I was like, we're going to sell it. She came in, she was like, boom, boom, boom. We were like, okay, we'll go to Mexico. You can have it all weekend. Like, came back, she had multiple hours. But there was something she asked me at one point, and I think we were standing out in the driveway, and she said, Sean, I just got to ask you, you've been in this business, the amount of time that you've been in the business, she goes, are you going to ask me for a discount? And I looked at her and I said, no. And she goes, why are you not going to ask me for a discount? I said, because I want to pay full price because I want full service and I'm going to hold you fully accountable.
Absolutely.
And every dime that I paid Kelly was totally worth it. We came back, actually, the 3 offers. The best one was 90 days stay in the home, $250,000 over list price, waive appraisal, waive inspection.
Oh, yeah.
Doctors. And so I was like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
I thought we would have 90 days to live in the house, by the way. And it took longer than that. So we moved into an RV. We lived in an RV for...
I told Devin that story.
Yeah.
It's like...
2 dogs and 2 kids. And I was living in Antioch, which nothing wrong with Antioch, but a little bit of the rougher side of town, but by the lake. And, you know, even...
Free showers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In that time, we've stood in our new home and we've said multiple times, we were like, I'm so thankful that we went through that for 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
And we would say, if we can do this and we can build a house, I know we can make this work. We can make our marriage work. I can get through anything at work. And it's a really good thing to do. But people won't throw themselves in those situations, or when they do, they just don't look at it that way a lot of times.
No. Well, I mean, I think the path of least resistance is very tempting. You know, I think that people, they want the easiest route or the thing that's going to cause the less friction or the least amount of pain, the least amount of discomfort. And I was on a Zoom yesterday with some folks and I said, you know, I've come to the conclusion, because I used to say all the time, well, when things calm down, right? Next month, when things aren't as crazy, you know, last year was the whole, once we get through the wedding, well, then we'll, you know, and then I finally realized I live in this constant state of productive chaos. That's my new name for it. Trademark. I need to make a note for me to trademark that. Yeah. Productive chaos. And I think that we're all kind of there, and some of us thrive on that. Some of us don't, what have you. But the bottom line is everybody has so much going on and your mind is in so many different directions that thinking of getting outside of your comfort zone a little bit or disturbing that in any way, it's just too much for people. So for me, when you talk about being a true professional and coming in and just kind of taking the reins, that's what I would want.
Right.
Right. In a situation like that, I want a professional. I don't want a doctor if it's going to be like, well, whatever you think. Right. You know, I want somebody that's going to come in and take the reins and really tell me what to do and guide me in a way that's going to be productive.
So we were talking a second ago about, you know, this race to the bottom thing.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. It gets my blood boiling. I had probably one of the hardest rate shoppers I've ever had last night. It was, of course, they can only meet at 5:30. I was like, I was supposed to do a date night with my wife at 6. I told her, I said, how about 6:30? And I told the team, I said, you know, 24 years doing this, it's 50-50. If they're a shopper, they're a shopper, they're a shopper. Mm-hmm. I said, but I'm going to make my best go at it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the other guy was going race to the bottom. And I just told myself, I was like, even if I have to give up this commission, I'm going to beat this son of a bitch. But here's what I did at the end of the call. I just looked at them and said, folks, at the end of the day, could you call 5 people and get lower numbers? Absolutely. If you want the lowest numbers, just go to this website. And
you don't even have to talk to anybody.
Like a crappy mortgage.
Yeah.
I said, but I'll promise you this. And I looked right in the screen. I looked right at them and I said, I will take care of you. You will get to closing on time, under budget, guaranteed. 24 years, no one's ever brought more money. I pay the difference out of my pocket if I mess up or my team messes up. I said, but we'll save you more than a couple hundred, a couple thousand now. Let's make you tens of thousands on this. Let me work with you over the next 5-10 years and help you, you know, build wealth and pay off debt and retire comfortably.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, talk a little bit about, you know, where you're at in the industry, because you're competitive, you're with a good company, you're doing a great job. I mean, you closed $10 million, like, and you're on track to do about $10 million, which is, that's awesome. I coach people 3, 4, 5 years in the business. Some people they're struggling to get over 10 million.
Well, we're in a 280 average price point.
Oh man, do you have inventory?
That's
our inventory is a little low. That's the thing. So year to date, it's been like, I had a closing today. It's like 8.7. So probably on track for close to 20, but,
you did 10 last year, didn't you?
Right under 10. I did right under 10 in 8 months, I think.
Also, just sidebar, how many deals did we close together?
I don't know.
Last year?
4, 5?
3 or 4.
Nice.
4?
The first 6 months made an oath. Won't give you one deal. We're not doing one thing. You do it on your own, kid. Throw him in the pool.
Because your reputation is important.
Oh, yeah.
He's got to know what he's doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, carry on.
But I'd say meeting with people and giving them true advice and true value, like something that can help change their life. Like, prime example, I have a client that actually texted me for this meeting. They were wanting to put an offer on a property, but they were actually with a previous lender who was kind of known in our town, sent them, like, didn't go over anything with them, didn't give them any advice, Literally sent them a breakdown of USDA, VA. They weren't a veteran. They weren't looking outside of Fayette County, so it wasn't even USDA eligible. Sent them conventional and FHA. Like, sent them 4 different programs, didn't break them all down. Like, these are the 4 different programs we got for you, Mike. And so luckily I had closed the client the week before, and they're like, hey, you need to get with, Devin. He did a great job. He helped me allocate money towards, certain credit cards, and showed me, like, I basically saved like $900 a month.
Nice.
Paying off certain credit cards and whatnot. Because she was told to put everything from the proceeds of her home towards just the down payment. And I was like, hey, you can, but let's break it down and look at the numbers over long term. I was like, can I get your credit card statement? She's like, why the hell? Literally, she was like, why the hell would you want my credit card statement? I was like, I want to see what you're paying in interest. And it was like 27%. And she had like 18 grand on it or 19 grand on it. Yeah. So like when you show somebody that, I'm like, hey, we can still allocate funds towards down payment, of course, but let's knock this off and, save you money down the road. And then let's look how much money you've saved. She's like, oh my gosh, I literally would have spent an extra X amount.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and that's life changing.
Oh yeah, no, it is for sure.
Yeah.
So we use MBS Highway. So an MBS Highway. And so this is what I'm realizing. So the American household, they're facing rising costs, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But they also are growing. They're having children, right?
Yeah.
They also get jobs. Imagine being faced at a $400,000 mortgage that you had locked in at 2.5%. You have 2 credit cards, 2 car loans, maybe some student loans or something. And you're like, we have to move, right? So you have the option of, hey, you're going to walk away with $100,000. We can put it down in a new home. Appreciation is going to go up. Like our industry is like, we're just tone deaf, right?
Yeah.
And then lenders and realtors are like, you can always refinance later. It's like, that's not a solution. What a solution is when you look in the national average right now, if you have under a subpar 5% interest rate and you have 2 car loans and 2 credit cards, their blended rate is 6.582%. So blended rate means what's all your debt accumulated? What are you paying on it? So I had a family the other night. We were sitting at dinner, me and my wife, and he was bragging about his 2.75. I'm just sitting there a little bit, and a little bit later. And then I start, they talk about Rome. And I was like, well, what'd you spend to go to Rome? I was like,
credit card point.
And then he put it on credit card.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, well, what's the rate on that? Well, it was 18, but defaulted to 28. The national average on credit scores just hit a 2009 low because the credit cards are going and reducing the limits now too. Mm-hmm. So what I'm getting at here is I understand why people are loan locked right now.
Oh, yeah.
But doing what you do is the solution, because I've had people sit and say, well, we're going to have to be in 650 to get what we want. And I'll be like, okay, 650
looks like,
is going to be $3,500.
Yeah.
Right now you're paying $2,000. I get it. That's $1,500, but I can get you in with 10% down. You're going to eliminate this. You now got 30. And I have people going to the table with the same outgoing expenses and a big old house now and no other debt.
Well, because someone took the time to truly understand their needs, to truly understand where they are. Hand to God. Last year, he had an agent in our town. I'm going to do you a favor and not call you out. And he was doing the same scenario for a client, right? And the client happened to be the son of a realtor.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And the realtor is, she's running through. So he's going back and forth with the son. Okay, no, you don't need to do this. Let's do that. And he's trying to show him some different scenarios and what he can do.
No, he was fine with it.
And
she was not.
He was great. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the realtor, Mama, literally contacts him and says, "Would you?"
No, she contacted my boss.
I'm not taking financial advice from a 24-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, sis, maybe you should.
Thinking.
Oh, and the best part was, is she goes, and I was like, why is that? Like, obviously this is the best advice to save him money. And she goes, well, I'm a silent owner in this because I gifted him these funds. So I was like, well, you also signed something saying that you didn't expect any type of repayment. So tell me how that worked.
Right? But how terrible. Are you kidding me? Like, this is like sound, great advice, right? This put your child on a better financial trajectory.
Yeah.
And that's the mentality. But that, when you talk about stinking thinking, it's exactly what it is. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I had a call come in one day and the team had said, hey, Sean, a lady on the phone, she's a broker owner. She wants to talk to you. She's not happy. I was like, okay, send her over. So I answered the phone. I was like, hello, this is Sean. She goes, is this the Sean Kaplan?
Oh.
And I was like, okay, great way to start a conversation with her. And I was like, yes, it's Sean. I was like, who am I speaking to? And she goes, well, my friends call me Babs, but you can call me Barbara. And I was like, okay, this is going to go well, right?
Yeah.
She goes, I just wanted to call you because some of my agents have passed along this email that you sent out with this statement that you believe that the real estate agent is directly responsible for the interest rate that the client gets. She goes, what type of garbage is this? And I said, okay, I understand it's a little emotional here. You're a little charged. I said, just let me ask you a question. Like, so when you go out and you look at properties, do you submit the offer or do I submit the offer? Well, my agent submits the offer, And I said, okay, now do I respond to the counteroffer or do your agents respond to the counteroffer? She goes, well, don't be silly. My agents respond to the counteroffer. And I said, okay. And if you ask the seller for credits and then we're able to use those credits to buy the interest rate down, who negotiated that? She goes, well, my agents did. What are you getting at here? And I said, the point being is, like, if you go and you get credits from a seller, you negotiate them, and then I bring them in, and I'm able to use them to lower the interest rate on the behalf of the client. Did I negotiate that contract, or did you? And she goes, well, I guess the agent did. She goes, but I still don't understand where you're going with this. And I said, who pays for a 2-1 buy down? She goes, well, the seller, the buyer, or the broker. And I said, that's where you're wrong. I said, because the buyer can't pay for the buy down. Mm-hmm. I said, and I'm sure you don't want your agents to come back and you don't want to pay for it, right? She goes, no, my agents aren't paying for it.
Oh, by God, they're not paying for it.
Yeah. At the end of the conversation, she goes, you can call me Babs. And I said, you can call me Cap. And it was a productive call, but I mean, like, there's so many of these people that come out with guns blazing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it comes from a place of fear.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
It's really this fear-based thinking, and it was just a lack of understanding, right? By the time, and you handled that beautifully. I think I would have immediately called her Babs, but good for you.
The old Sean.
You're a better person than me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm like you, where it's like people in town, I always tell my guys, my loan officers, I'm like, look, you're going to get about 75% of people be like, oh, I like Sean. He runs a great business. He's a good person. He knows what he's doing, whatever. And you're going to get 25% they're like, I don't like that guy.
Yeah.
You know what? They'll never say that I screwed somebody. I overcharge them. I cheated.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you can't afford that. Your name and your reputation, that's all that you have, But yeah, you'll get into, I've had those types of calls, and they'll just come out with guns blazing. And the first thing I say is like, whoa, hold on just a second. So is this a conversation?
That's a great communication.
Is this a conversation?
Just leave it with a little inflection at the end. Yeah. So is this a conversation? If you just want to yell at me, I'll shut up and sit back and let you, right?
Yeah.
I don't say that to them, but in the minute you say that, they kind of stop like, oh.
Or if they don't stop, I'll say, I'm not going to continue to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Volume.
Yeah.
Or the best part was, talking when I told you about that one agent I called last week, and she goes, oh, y'all are great and everything, but your closing costs are high. And I was like, and I said, what are expensive? I said, what's expensive? And she goes, I don't know. I was like, so then I said, so where'd you get that from? And she goes, well, this other lender told me that. And
of course they did.
I was like, yeah, of course they did. And I was like, okay. I was like, and I'm not going to say her name. And I was like, so when you go to list the house, I was like, you do a lot of listings, right? I'm looking here. You've done 14 listings in the past 12 months. You've done pretty well with listings, right? She goes, oh yeah, of course. Like, I love it. And I'm like, so tell me what you do. And she goes through, she got into it. She's like, oh, I do this. I help them show how much money they can get for their home, da-da-da-da. And I was like, so why don't you list for like 5? Absolutely. I'm putting so much time. I was like,
oh.
I said, oh. And she goes, I see where you're going with this. I totally get it. Actually, you know what? She goes, I'll go get lunch with you and we'll talk. I'm like, see, I was like,
that's exactly what
I was like, that's crazy. I was like, isn't that crazy? Yeah.
But when I say educate yourself, as a realtor, if that had been me and I had heard, oh, they're so expensive or there's so much more or whatever, I've heard they've had a great reputation, but there's so much, I would want to call somebody and be like, okay, can you break this down for me? Tell me why your fee sheet looks like this and that one looks like that. And
it ended up being,
I want to know.
It ended up being prepaid. I looked, I was like, hey, these are the processing, underwriting, everything. I was like, it's the exact same.
You said every consumer that's listening to this here, then that we know, or at least I've been taught recently, is, I'm being coached by the number one guy in our company. He's the one loan officer in the nation. And I was like, how do you close 35% of all your deals in 10 days, right? Mm-hmm. And he's in Florida. And I said, what do you do when you get in that discussion? And he goes, Sean, He goes, I tell clients there's 3 separate sets of closing costs. There's lender fees, there's government, and there's title. And he goes, we only control the first one. That's $2,048. Is somebody else $1,800 and the other one's $2,400? Yeah, maybe. But other than that, everything at the end of the day, when you get to the closing table, is going to be exactly identical.
Yeah.
It's the same title company, same city, same county, same deed, tax stamps, and prepaids are going to be what prepaids
Yeah.
be, right?
Maybe rearrange a little bit.
And it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
It's a shell game of like, look at this show, Here. And it's like, that's what annoys me about our industry.
Oh, yeah. No, it's crazy.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I had somebody last week. She got under contract for a $400,000 property, and they said her insurance was going to be $60 a month, and that her taxes were going to be like $200 a month. She goes, your closing costs are more expensive. I was like, all right, let's compare. And I was like, I'm sorry, but your homeowner's insurance is not going to be $60 a month. And it wasn't a new bill.
Condo.
Yeah, I was like, and I explained it to her. I had to pull up PVA, show her tax rate, and she was like, oh, wow, why would they do that? I was like, to make themselves seem less expensive,
We have and then they're going to get the nasty escrow letter. And the end of the year, the escrow short. We have a lender, one of my competitors here in town, and I won't say her name, but their trick is every time they do closing costs, they move title over to the seller's side. So you're a couple $1,000, right? And then her excuse when it gets caught is, oh, well, typically in Tennessee, the seller pays the title. That's a lie. There's typical. There's now sellers aren't paying title. Now, the agent will read their contract, and in that little line will put seller, and a bad agent won't read it when they present it to their listing.
Yeah.
But it's just so underhanded. And I'll call it out. The other thing is they'll leave appraisal out, and then they make it separate.
Yeah.
I just put it all in there, and I'm like, look, this is what it's going to be. I guarantee it won't be over there.
Yeah, that's it. Show them the worst case scenario. Yeah. That's just where it's so critical that agents, especially, that you've got to educate yourselves. You have absolutely got to educate yourselves. Go to conferences, listen to podcasts, watch interviews, whatever it is that you have to do, but educate yourself and don't just bank on whatever's right there in front of your face as the obvious choice, because it's just not how it is.
Yeah.
I know you want to trust that, but that's not the case. And if you really want to be a true fiduciary for your client, you need to understand these things. I've been in the business a long time. I don't understand the ebbs and flows of loans like he does. Right? That's not my job. But my job is to have a deep understanding of exactly what you just said, right? The fees are technically the same. Right. Like when people come to me and say, well, we're rate shopping, and to explain to someone like, the rate is the rate, right? Like, the federal government, like we aren't the people that get to determine the rate, right? If we were, we would all be millionaires, right? That's not how it works. So, but the average Joe doesn't know that. So it's educating yourself, getting yourself around people that know the game better than you know the game, right?
I don't call it rate shopping. I'll tell some people, I'll be like, hey, I know you're rate shopping, but I'll tell you, what you're doing is you're liar shopping.
Yeah.
You ask enough people, you're going to find the biggest liar, and that's the loan you're probably going to go with. You're going to, you're in for a rude awakening, right? So let's talk about social media a little bit and digital. And, we got traditional real estate business that, we were raised up in. We got this new modern real estate business. I think a blend of both of them is where it's at. And I also see people messing up in this area thinking that social media is going to be their whole business, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we met through social media, the power of it, right? Like, what impact has that made in your business so far?
Well, mine is... So that's what I'm trying to get.
His old mom is better at social media. That's all good. He'll get there.
So just starting out, trying to get everything rolling, and that's kind of why obviously coming down here is to learn a little bit more about it. And content creators has been great. So that Zoom we had yesterday was great too.
Well, before you leave here, I'm going to give you a quick little 411 on how to record your reels.
Yeah.
And I'll send you my little list through Amazon if you want to know like what I would buy. Like you're going to go back and do it over again. And you'll be pretty surprised how easy it is.
Yeah.
When I saw the formula, how to do short form content consistently, I can't show up. And I used to do this thing on Wednesdays called Cut the Crap with Cap. And so I started video in 2010. And it was just me telling people what I thought about things. You run out of
things to talk about.
Yeah.
So when I found when it started changing in 2021 a lot, and I saw this formula on how they do these, scripts and these videos and what people wanted to consume.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so much easier. So I'll help you out before you leave a little bit.
Yeah, no, for
I
sure.
think it's what you said earlier with the power of social media is that people get to see you before they hear you.
Yes.
And I think that there's so much to that, right? Right now, people, it is just kind of the scroll, and that's how they're getting their information. And if I can be the person that gives them a little nugget because they were scrolling in the right place at the right time, so be it, right? It's like you said, it's not the day of mailers and door knocking anymore. And don't knock those things. You do what works for you.
Yeah. Door knocking before an open house can work out.
Absolutely.
The guy that was a California Highway Patrol, he's become a really good friend. He's only 2 years in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, I said, man, like you're helping 3 or 4 families a month right now. I said, what do you think primarily that is? And he goes, 3 out of 4 weekends I do an open house for other agents. And I said, okay, so you're not just going to sit in the house. He goes, well, I know, being highway patrol, I know how to read people. And I said, well, walk me through. Tell me a little bit, like when you start, whatever. And he goes, I show up an hour and a half to 2 hours early. I walk the neighborhood. He goes, I will go up and I'll knock on the door. I learned as a policeman that I step down, 1 foot up, and I turn my body sideways so I'm not square. I'm not a threat. Mm-hmm. He goes, and now I'll just say, oh, like almost like they caught me off guard. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hey, selling nothing. Just want to let you know out of common courtesy that you're going to see a bunch of cars parked down here, and your neighbor's actually selling. Did you know your neighbor was selling? Which one is what they'll say. It was like, which one? And be like, so, hey, great time to pick your neighbors if you know anybody that's going to be living here. By the way, how long you lived here? And it walks right, and he goes, he'll get another listing sometimes.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there, I'm talking to him. I said, okay, so you do that. Then he talked about his signs. He said 20 directional signs minimum. But he said I said, when people come into the open house, if you get people to come, 5, 10 people, 20 sometimes, whatever. I said, what percentage of those, don't have an agent? And he goes, about 50%. I said, hold up. You're telling me as a real estate agent, if you host an open house on the weekend and you can draw some people out there, about half of them will walk in and not have a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he goes, that's when I figured out. Why do more agents not do open houses?
That was literally my bread and butter the first probably 3 years in business. And I was from the town that I lived in. My sphere was there. I'd gone to college there. My husband had gone to school. Like both of our families were from there. I wasn't taught anything about a database or how to work any of that. So all I knew was I have 2 little kids. My husband can be home with them on the weekends. I'm going to go work open houses. And it was literally my entire business for 3 years was literally open houses. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was it. And I'll tell you, well, you want the
time?
truth?
Yeah, time consuming. It's on the weekend. Yeah,
lazy agents don't want to work weekends, right? Yeah. And so it goes back to tough conversations. When you just said to me, he said, "Oh, I show up an hour and a half to 2 hours early." Do you know how many agents, when they host an open house, are rolling in on 2 wheels 10 minutes before it starts? Literally,
just expect people to show up.
Yeah. And I mean, I would go out the day before, and I would use like a big yard, like the actual metal yard signs, and I would put that on the corner of, it'd be like Man of War and Todd's Road or whatever the big intersection was before the house. That's where the huge sign went. And then all the directionals, right? And that's literally where I got all of my clientele. And to this day, we now have upped our game. So now we have food trucks. We had to do this. COVID is when we started doing this, right? Yeah. I was never a lazy open houser, but I was never an over the top open houser. And then we turned into one of those. So we would have literally the lender would be there with a mask on, and we had lender written on the mask.
Oh, wow.
The home inspector. I still have the masks. I'll have to show them to you. They're in the basement.
Who was it?
At the time it was Tiffany.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. So she had the mask that said lender. Shannon wore one that said realtor. Troy was there with home inspector. And so
gotcha.
Different people there. They could meet everybody. I stayed out front, and we had a tent, rain, shine, whatever. There was always a white tent because all I cared about is for the neighbors to see it. We have a big 24-foot flag, just a plain white pole.
Not overkill.
It doesn't say open house. It's just a 24, right? But all I care about, I do not do open houses to pick up buyers. Just there's I do open houses to get listings.
Yeah. Right.
I want everybody in that neighborhood to say, my realtor didn't do that, or I've never seen an open house like that, right? And what I do is, instead of knock doors, I stand at the end of the driveway, right? And as cars are coming in, we always do an open house 5 to 7. Our thing is we put the house on the market Wednesday. We don't do showings until the open house Thursday night, 5 to 7. Creates a little whatever, it's a whole thing.
Thursday, 5 to 7.
That's a podcast for another day. But the neighbors are all coming home, right? Everybody's coming home for work. So I stand at the end of the driveway at the street, and the cars are driving by, and I'll go, hey, free tacos. Come back and feed your family.
Wow.
Hustle. Like $200, right? You get people pitch in, your lender pitches in, title pitches in. Even if they don't pitch in, I don't care. I'll pay $200 to get to have 20 conversations with people that night. So I have my crew inside the house, making sure nobody's stealing toys and pills, right? I don't care. They've seen the pictures. They know what the house looks like. I'm outside shaking hands and kissing babies.
Is that a problem? Do people steal stuff from open house?
I don't have that problem. I mean, I'm sure it has happened.
Because now with cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty aware. So now it's a point of, we were talking, it was like, we need you to come in. I want you to set, part of our thing when we list now is I need your Wi-Fi passcode, because when I show up, my lender's going to be here. It's going to have his laptop. If people want to have, if they have questions about what would this would look like if I bought this house, there was a nice prime time there where we could talk about what it would look like to refi your house. Yep. We don't talk about that today, but anyway, it's a thing, right? But you have to be really intentional and really purposeful around an open house. If I'm going to take my time on a Sunday to go and do that, which I don't anymore, which is why we do Thursday nights, right? My weekends are far more valuable to me. We were talking about your big why. Yeah. This was a conversation the other day, and it was one of my coaching clients, and she said, I just feel bad. I don't have kids, and everybody talks about how their kids are their big why, and I don't have kids yet, so I feel weird saying that's my big why. And I was like, so how long have you known me, right? Like I ran an office up in Chicago, and she knew me then, and I said, do you remember me talking about what my big why was then? And she sat there for a second, and then she started laughing, and I was like, no, say it. What was it? She was like, grandkids. I said, I didn't have grandkids. But I knew 6-7 years ago, I've got my kids in a good place now. Everybody's good. So now I want to build my business to a place where when I have grandkids, if my kids want help babysitting, if they want to send their kids to private school, if they want to go to Disney with the whole family every year, I don't have to say no.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So that's when things shift, right? But it's always not the thing that's right in front of your face. But you had to be highly intentional. And one of those things was I'm not doing open houses on the weekends anymore because my kid played ball at the time, and it was more important to me to be able to drive down to South Carolina and watch him break records.
Yeah.
No. You did. Don't be shy. But it was fun. That was my, so that's where that all came from, was we decided we'll list a house on Wednesday, and we just won't have showings until Thursday night, 5 to 7. The people are getting off work. They come by, they get a free dinner. And we have some great conversations, but it's worked out really well.
And you didn't just stop at just like, hey, this is the open house. You like added, you removed contingencies.
Oh, yeah.
Tell people like in this, like here, like if we're doing an event, we have 35 agents RSVP'd for Tuesday. We'll probably get 25. There's always a third. Mm-hmm. I said, but let's attempt to remove every contingency. Do you think that Navy SEALs go in with not covering every contingency?
Yeah.
Like I told my assistant, I said, don't just plan on one person being there to unlock the door. Make sure there's a backup plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that in real estate and mortgages, that's critically important. And keeping that positive mindset, you put those two things together. It's like, hey, sometimes I would go to a lunch and I would get ghosted.
Oh, yeah.
And be like, all right, well, who's in this restaurant that I could meet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who's in this coffee shop that I can meet, right? So you got into the coaching program with Growth Only.
Yeah.
And you're on the sales activity tracker.
Yeah.
Like, what's it been like so far? Because you're used to coaching. So like being in a mortgage coaching program.
No, I like it. Just kind of like that. I've always been coached my entire life, literally.
I'm a firm believer. If Michael Jordan needed a coach, you need a coach. Right. I don't care who you are. Everybody needs a coach. Yes.
But it's just the tracking piece, because like success, like my boss says all the time, success leaves clues. Mm-hmm. So it's like kind of going back to the open house thing. I had a conversation with one of my main agents months ago, and she's like, man, I'm struggling to get buyers. And I was like, all right, let's sit down, come to the office. Let's go over kind of what you did last year to have a killer year. And I was like, all right, where'd you get all these buyers from? Literally, I was like looking at the spreadsheet and everything. I was like, you literally got 93 or 94% of your buyers from open houses. And I was like, how many open houses have you held this year? She's like, 2. I was like, and how many? And she was on track to barely do any, but she did. It was crazy. But I was like, do you not see this? But open houses, I was like.
Well, John Maxwell, it's the best thing.
Like,
he says everybody has uphill dreams, downhill.
Yeah. So, but.
And that's a perfect example.
But it's just perfect because people don't have that self-awareness. And I think having that allows me to, track stuff and know exactly what I'm doing day to day, because I think everybody in the office that knows me, I'm very sporadic and off the wall and all that stuff. So
the fact that you took the time to sit down with her and do that in a world where, quite frankly, I mean, I'm sure you all have heard it from realtors, it's hard sometimes to get lenders to even call you back. And I'll tell you what, when I'm in a multiple offer situation, and I'm 9 times out of 10, I'm the listing agent, and I have a multiple offer situation, the very first thing I do, and sometimes those offers come in at 9 o'clock at night, and the very first thing I do is I pick up the phone and I call those lenders.
Yes.
And I can tell you now, if I have 4 offers, at best, I have 2 conversations.
How many realtors call you when there's an offer coming in out of 10?
I usually call them.
Okay, right.
If there's multiple.
How many?
Oh, none.
Maybe 1.
Yeah.
Which blows my mind.
Why? My people, this is their investment. I'm just going to trust?
Yeah.
I'm going to trust this piece of paper or trust this. Oh, yeah, they have the money.
Yeah.
Trust me. No way. We're having a
just
conversation.
simple questions like, hey, have you received the tax returns? Have they been reviewed?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you get paycheck stubbed?
But having a lender that will answer the phone at 9 o'clock at night, or, I mean, I've worked with the University of Kentucky coaching program with the football program for years. We had a coach, one of the football coaches, on a Friday night. They work with, a company. And it was a Friday night. We wrote an offer, and it was 5:30 that we were wanting to write this offer. And I called the lender, have done multiple deals with this lender because the university works with this same lender, would not give me a letter until Monday.
Oh, my gosh.
They went with a different company.
I would fire him.
They went with a different company.
Yeah.
So anyway, taking the time to sit down and actually look at someone's business and say, where did this come from? And, what are you doing now?
Yeah.
That's huge, right? Like just getting value to people.
People value consistency. Yeah. People value consistency. One of the best things you could do right now is establish what your consistency and what your business is. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is the reason why most realtors are confused on who to call on a Saturday is because we're terrible at letting the community know, like, hey, this is when I can serve you.
Yeah.
For 14 years, we've been 364 days a year, 7 days a week. The only day that we're closed is on Christmas. You can call me from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. and either me or my captain will answer the 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And so it's consistent. Mm-hmm. That way you don't get people, maybe I should call Sean. I'll call this other guy.
Yeah.
Well, you're calling the other guy who's a subpar lender, no offense, but no, call my team. Now, and as you get busy, as you grow, you'll want to make sure that you have good people that serve you on your team.
Yeah.
You can't say no offense. That offense was earned.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, don't apologize for greatness, Sean. It's all right.
Okay, all right. So, closing thoughts here. Like, if you could go back 15 years ago, what something that you would have told yourself in the beginning of real estate?
Oh, gosh, I would have set my priority. Exactly what you were just talking about, hours and setting your priorities. I would have done that a lot sooner. I see the same thing in him now. So it's very interesting when you're a go-getter and you're just a hustler, right? And you have that drive and that work ethic. And as soon as I got a little taste of that success, I just dug in my heels and went for it. And so now I look back and I think of all the times, like I never really missed out on anything with my kids. I missed out on a lot of personal relationships. Like I really walked away from a lot of friendships because I was just going after and I only had so much time, right? And I think now looking back on it, I'm hyper protective of my time now. Like it's more valuable to me than anything. I say no far more than I say yes with zero regrets.
Right.
And it is a full sentence. Yeah. Like, hey, can we go out? No.
That's something you all should take note.
And that's it. So
make no your favorite, one of your favorite words.
Yeah, I say it way more. I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm on Zooms and I do meetings from my home, which is my favorite place to be in the entire world. I would rather, I can go anywhere I want to go and I absolutely love being home. I love the fact that I can put on a pair of yoga pants and a sweatshirt and hop on a Zoom and get my job done, no matter who I need to talk to in the country, right? But it's because I'm more selective, right? I'm more selective and I'm more protective of my time. And I work far less and make far more than I did 10 years ago. And it's because I make decisions a little bit differently. So I wish I'd done that sooner. Yeah. I'm kind of glad. I'm grateful for the journey. I feel like it got me where I am now. But it is nice to be able to say no and still be able to turn on the lights and eat. Yeah. Like, it's nice. It's nice.
Where do you want to be in 3, 4, 5 years? Like, what's something you really would like to accomplish or build or be at, or personal or family? Or business?
Well, personally, want to be able to kind of, my biggest thing was get everything in order and organized to where I can leave, and not feel like I have to work, super late because I don't want to sacrifice family time and all that stuff.
That page?
Yeah. Because that's the most important thing. Because, I mean, you all made it a big point. Like, Dad worked a ton, you worked a ton, and they didn't miss stuff for me. So I'm like, I'd be doing a disservice if I did that to my kid.
Yeah.
My wife.
You don't miss those things. It's everything. It's why you do it.
Oh, yeah.
Just build it from the beginning.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. But, I mean, 5 years from now, I mean, you can put a number on volume and all that and units and stuff. But, I mean, I want to be definitely one of the best to do this for sure. Like, there's kind of I'm a very competitive person, and yeah, I am.
Well, you got a great mother.
Yeah.
You got some great mentors.
Oh, yeah.
And you are I can tell, I've met a lot of loan officers.
Yeah.
Probably 100,000 loan officers. And I can tell when someone's going to be successful. Yeah. As long as you continue to stay on the right path and keep the main thing, which is that family that you are. The rest of it will fall in place. Mm-hmm. My biggest regret probably going back is not focusing more on building a portfolio of real estate.
Yeah.
I bought a lot of real estate, but I bought and sold and, invested. I put it all in the stock market.
Yeah.
Stuck there. And I'm teaching my daughters about passive income and active income.
Yeah.
And that's one of the mistakes I made. I was a good saver. I just, nobody taught me how to buy properties and keep them.
Yeah. I did the exact
all that equity. I was like, I want that because I want to pay off all my debt, right?
Yeah.
Exact same thing. And that was
So you would have kept earlier?
I kept
Gotcha.
rentals. But I had a coach too, that for 12 years, and he was a very gruff man, and he's one of the nation's largest coaches for mortgage lenders, and you probably know who I am, who he is if I bring up his name, but he wouldn't let us buy rental properties. And later I found out, I feel like it was a reason was because he didn't want us to be distracted or find a way to make money
outside of lending.
To keep us hungry.
Yeah.
But now I look back and I'm like, man, if I just would have bought one property a year for 10 years in a row, like I probably would have had $4 million in equity. I would have had some passive income. The rates would have been locked in low. Set it and forget it. And now I miss that opportunity.
Well, you did, but your kids won't.
My kids,
right? And that's what I have to tell myself. Like, all we can do is teach them. This house you're buying, you're never getting rid of this. You're owning this house till Jesus comes back, right? Like, every home you buy, you're never selling, right? Because nobody ever told us that. We just didn't know, right? You do the best you can with what you got at the time. So your kids will never have to worry about that.
Well, I really appreciate you being here. It really was an honor, both of y'all.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And a very unique dynamic to be able to have, two pros in the industry, and I'm sure that you're so proud of what he's done.
He's okay.
Yeah,
he'll do.
But I'll put all their socials below so we can help him start building his social profile. Give him a follow. Make sure to tune in for the next episode. Share this one, please. Tag someone that maybe needs to watch this. And I appreciate both of y'all being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, editor cut right there. It was easy, wasn't it?
Good times.
In the beginning, when I sit down here, I have to I get quicker at it at reminding myself. I'm like, okay, look, we're not on a TV interview show. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But you make it super, super easy when, to start the conversation, go into it.
Yeah. Thank you.
So you're really good at that.
Thank you.
This off. Oh, turn it.
Yeah, this is a sweet setup.